Hi, I'm Mike,
Hi, I'm Brent.
and today we're picking up where we left off with resume best practices. Something we see all too often is formatting inconsistencies in resumes. It's not usually a big deal if you have something, slightly off-centered or maybe a small typo or something like that. Most people wouldn't consider that to be a really big issue, but a lot of people will actually filter candidates based on whether or not they have typos. And it's like if you can't work on your resume and make sure that it's free of typos and errors, then they sort of interpret that to mean that you would maybe not be very detail oriented or other things like that. So it's important to make sure that you're kind of being consistent across your entire resume. What do you think, Brent?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think things like if you mess up your email address, like maybe you misspelled some names. I've seen a resume where someone accidentally misspelled his name just because he's typed it so much, but I've seen a lot of typos. I think one thing that people don't think about is just make sure that when you're putting your jobs, the date that you have your jobs, if there's any inconsistencies or like overlaps, like, oh, maybe you messed up the year or you put multiple jobs that are around the same year that's incorrect and they call you out on that, you'll be like, anything that would make them question or be like a red flag about your experience could be something that a hiring manager would just pass on your resume right there.
For sure. Don't give them any excuse to pass on it.
Exactly. So our second tip of today is make sure that if you put anything on your resume, like a website, make sure that it's updated and that it's actually working and that it's not out of date. My example would be is if you put your personal blog up there, just assume that the hiring manager is going to go out and check that and make sure that it doesn't have anything like political opinions or anything really personal about your stuff. My example was that I use my email brent@brenthowland.com. So a hiring manager might be like, oh, I want to see Brent's actual website, see what's on there. And I think it would be a bad impression to them if they went to the site and it was down or went to 404 or it went to like my Facebook page or my Instagram or it went to a blog that I had that I was just maybe showing pictures of my family. I guess pictures of my family is okay, but if it showed like my political opinions or just like me talking about random things, I think that would be just might be a red flag.
For sure. And I think you have to be careful with, especially the URLs. I had one candidate that put his whole email address, but his email was wrong. So it's like that's the worst thing when you have a candidate you want to contact and the email's wrong. So even the little things, make sure the links work. So our last tip for today is the length of your resume. This is something that, especially in tech, there's a pretty strong opinion here, and it's to keep your resume to one page or less. And even if you have like 10 years of experience, there's almost always a way for you to cut it down. Now, if you happen to be like a Nobel Prize winning author and like, you've done a whole bunch of things in your life and like 10 different research papers, maybe it can be two pages or something like that. But usually if it's longer than a page, it means you're cutting down and you're sort of adding filler content. So it's almost always better to keep it one page. What do you think, Brent?
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. Like you're not going to be listing 100 of your patents that you have. I mean, if you're really on the third page, like what could you really be listing? You don't need to tell
Right.
them about every single job that you had. I think for me, it's like just list the your latest ones, maybe in the last 5 years. That's what would be important. You don't want to list every single skill that you have. You just have to think about it. We were talking about this earlier about the order of it. And again, list the most important things that you want the hiring manager to look at, because most likely, if on the third page, they've already like lost their attention. They're focusing on whatever's on your first page. So just make sure that keep whatever that you want on the first page. Make it only one page. If you have to do it larger, that's fine. But think about being concise, getting your point across as quickly as possible, because that hiring manager could be looking at, you know, 500 resumes in that day. Who knows?
For sure. A good rule of thumb here is the farther in the past it's been, the more bullet points you should be striking from it. So your job from 5 years ago shouldn't have as many bullet points, hopefully, as the one that you have, within the last 6 months. So kind of keep that in mind.
Yep, that makes sense. So those are our tips for today. Remember to keep watching our other skilled videos. Have a good day.